Our recording has been started. Last week we have seen, yes, we have worked with r.view file, which was terminated when we followed few commands like npm create view at the rate latest and followed the sequence of the commands which was suggested by us. And then few files were created, and we decided that the main interest for us for this particular project is we have to modify the whatever the files are there in this SRC folder, because this is the folder SRC folder which holds various files which is relevant for displaying the content, or basically contains the logic for our front end. So, and then we created two views. One was the login view where we created a login template, and then we tried to connect the database, basically the back end of our application, with the front end. So, as you all know, that our front end application is hosted in different server as compared and different server is compared to the backend server. So, our backend server is hosted on port number 500 in local machine, and front end is generally hosted on 5173 port number. So we faced some problems there, and the problem was of getting the chorus error. So somehow using the Flask chorus library, we handled we allowed that chorus or cross origin resource sharing, and then we carefully understood step by step how this how can we use this fetch function, and then how do we propagate the data and how we get the data which was sent back by the backend. So that's the thing which we did. And we also use this event which says that at the rate submit dot prevent. Prevent is a modifier which actually restricts its default behavior of the button submit, but it and it asks us to execute this particular function. It has been returned and in this particular function. So we also saw that we also understand that this fetch which was created, this was returning as a promise. So we used await and async so that we can wait for this particular information to be resolved, this particular promise to be resolved, and then we can move ahead. Generally, we can have an asynchronous way of writing the fetch request as well, which we'll see when we create the components. But for the login, we generally need that this should be the way it is in this. So after this, and we also saw how we define these router links. So in generally when we are doing Mad1 project, we had these anchor tags, but since we're creating SPS, so we were using routers from the view router. So we use router links in the router view, and I asked you all to read the documentation of the view router to understand more about what are all possible use cases which you can do. This is one use case which we can see. And later, when we perform other operations, we'll also see how do we pass parameters with this particular path and how that reciprocates. So that's the thing with the view routers. It's how we are using it. Now, if we look at one thing, that let's first to start working with the register.view, where I want to create my user. So here is a few things which I want to focus on first. So that is, I want to perform some sort of validation before entering my data into the data, basically sending the request back to the backend. I want to also perform some sort of data validation in the front end itself. So for in models, we just had the models which we have created, we just had two input boxes. We were storing only the email and password. But for your use case, you might be storing multiple information. So it is good to have a check on that. So generally, the validation which I'm going to do in this particular application is we are using this input box over here, which is storing the email, right? So I want to do a check over here that whatever email this user is entering, whether this email already exists in my database or not. That's the check which I'm going to do to ensure that before even user clicks on the submit button, user is notified that this particular username is not available. That's the feature which we always see in all the modern applications, web application which we see on right. So that kind of a feature I want to introduce in my registration page. So let's see how do we go about doing that. So as discussed in the videos which was shared on the G Space, there was this one keyword called as be on, and then we used to use something called as click, right? And this be on click was used to see if someone clicks on a particular accept particular place, what action to take place. We have discussed that. Similar to the click, we have a event called as input. So basically, what it is that when and whenever an input happens in this particular input box, what action to follow, and that's the purpose. And this V on can be shorthanded written as at the rate. So I hope you have no doubts in understanding this because this was discussed in the video which was shared. So I would can define a input event over here that if an operation of input happens in this particular input box, I want to execute a function that is check use email availability, uh, defining this particular function. Please ignore if there's spelling errors. Yep. So this is the function which we have, which we'll be defining, and this would ensure that whatever email address we are entering, it is a valid email address, and also that this email is available for us to create a new user because we are doing a registration operation. So this is the thing which we have written in our templates. So the input box which we have defined, we have associated an event with that. And now I will define the what needs to be done in the event in the script tag. So let's write a function over here which will perform the check email availability. But in order to check this email availability, email availability, I have to send a uh, request to my backend to check in the database, right? But first, if we look at the APIs which we have created, because that was just an experimental API which we created last time, in the authentication API, we just have a login API, logout API, and register API, but we don't have anything to check for the availability. So I can just create a new one by saying that class check email API, and I can create a resource by just saying get define. So I'm just creating a new API so that that works for me. And this email I'll be sending in the body. So request request. JSON, and this if not credentials will send with some error message. The email is basically request body send. And if we have the request body, we'll get the email. We can say that email is not required and email is needed. And then we can get our user information. We don't need to use user data store because it's just a read operation. Or anyways, we can use user data store for that matter. So user data store dot find user email. If user is there, that we can result in a message. We can return response, just okay. And we are just saying that available is equals to false. That's the message which we are saying. Otherwise, we can return that available is true. That's the thing which we wanted. So this is how we have created one API. Let's add this into the resources as well. So this was from here. So I need to API check email. So this is the API which we have created. I hope you had no problems in understanding what we have done. And now when I'm making this check availability, first, so this email, which we are reading over here, it has been binded to this particular variable as you can see over here. So now I want to make that, let's first check if email dot value, if there is this add the symbol in email dot value. This is a check which we are performing. then only it's a valid email address. Otherwise, we can say we will say something that the email address is not valid. This is the front end validation only which we are doing over here. But the main objective was to check whether the email availability exists or not. So for this case, we need to send an API request with the email as a body. So we can create a fetch request, fetch, and the HTTP. I'll just copy the URL from here. I have created it in login view, so it's easier for me to just write down. Yes, and now instead of login, and how I've created my yes. So we have given a prefix over here. So that's why it will become API slash check email. Okay. And then just a second, I've done something wrong over there. It's, this function starts with system closes. So I can pass the method as post, and I can also pass the object with the whatever the email is there. I can pass that value inside this. And now this will return some response. And I could make it asynchronous the way we have done in my login view. How we have made this request, this promise as an or asking us to await and then async this thing which we have done. But here I want this particular task of checking this email address asynchronously, and I don't want to wait for this particular task to complete. So as you all know that in order to handle the promises, we can use .then. So generally what happens, let me come over here. So if we have a promise, if it gets resolved, we write a function. Let's say that we have a resolved or rejected. So any promise which we see, if that promise gets resolved, inside the then, if you use the then function, if this promise gets resolved, this particular function will be executed. If this promise gets rejected, this this function will be executed. But I'm just writing what will happen if this particular promise which we return gets resolved. So that's when I'm writing an arrow function over here. So this arrow function will take a response as one of the arguments. And then, as you know, the arrow functions are being defined with the help of these curly braces, this equal and arrow symbol. And then, okay, whatever I'm going to write inside this particular function now, this is just one function if you see. If I want to also handle what happens if this particular promise gets rejected, I can also write that. But for now, we are just handling if what happens if this particular promise gets resolved. Any doubts till this particular point? This is a different way how we send a fetch request.
So after dot then,
Arun, you're saying
whatever we
something? Yeah.
write, it is like after dot then, whatever we write is basically the result.
Yes.
Like by default, it takes for resolve,
The first
right?
argument inside the
Is all
then function is always resolved. The
resolved.
next
Yeah.
argument is always rejected. But since this is just one function which we are writing, so it is just handling the resolve part of the promise.
Okay. So then we use catch also, right? Dot
We'll
catch.
use the catch in the end. So
Okay.
when we are done with everything, all the thens which we need, then we'll see how to do it. We can use catch there after that.
Okay.
And there is this keyword called as finally also, which we can use if there's something.
Even if it's rejected, we that has to be executed,
Yeah, even if
right?
something is rejected, yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So now, if you look at the way we looked at login view over here, now this was returned over here. And so this is the promise and it returned response. But if you know this response is also a promise, that's why we have used await over here. And then we got a data. So now, and this data over here, if I ask you what is this data is also a promise because it is an output of this await. So, and now this is just the thing that anything which is an output of the await will also become a promise. So basically what will happen over here is it will become a nested then statement will happen. But we are not worried about that for now. I just want to understand what happens when I get a response. And we saw when we made a console statement on the response, we saw that it has various functions like if status is okay, if status is not okay, and all that set of things. We know that that will happen. Right now, I want to say if the response is okay for me, if the response is okay, that means that the status code is around between 200 to 300. And that's when I created my API. If you see, I'm sending only 200 status code when only I get this information about whether it's available or not. And that's what I need. So I'll access that. If response is okay, I will return the response.json. Okay. If the response is not okay, I'll just make a else statement. Right now, I'm just making a console statement. Uh, Error. There was some error in checking. Worried about. I'm not worrying about this particular case. Where is the API? Here. I'm not worried about displaying these messages to the user right now because this is internal implementation of our API. We are not. This user has nothing to do with these things because if you look over here, this API and everything is what we are checking, right? So this implementation user is not concerned because this operation was not done by the user. I'm not concerned about displaying these error messages to the user. Instead, this is for developers to track what has happened, what has gone wrong. That's why just making a console statement, there is some error in checking the email availability. I hope this part is clear. And then since we are returning a response.json over here, if the response was okay, I was returning response.json. And then I would say, so this is also in promise now. Response.json is also a promise. So I can handle this promise with the help of data, and I can create another error function which will handle what to do with the data which we have received. Okay. So what I want to do over here is I want to write something, some message over here. Check email message. So this is a variable which we are declaring, and I'm making it a ref also. So this is what we have done. And now I have got the data. And now this data has an attribute called as available. So this is how the data would look like, right? You have any doubt in this? What the data would be? This would be the data which we have received over here. Any doubts till this particular point? Mohini and others? So if
I'm able to follow.
inside the available, so if the data has this key called as available, so this data dot available is again I'm repeating this data dot available. This whether this value can be either true or false. So if this data dot available is true, that's when we are changing the message, check email message to user uh, email address valid. That's what the same error message you said, email address is available. Otherwise, uh, this message can be sent at email. It is already taken. I hope this point, up to this point, we have what we have done is we have done a different way to send the fetch request and connect our database, our front end with the backend. This is another way. This is an asynchronous way of connecting the database. The first in the yesterday's session, what we have seen is a synchronous way because we have used await, so we have made this particular fetch thing synchronous because we are waiting for this entire promise to resolve, then this promise to resolve, and that's what we are waiting for these promises to resolve. But that's not the case in this situation. So this is a different way to make a fetch request. And if this thing is not there, right? If the @ symbol is not there in the email, I don't want to send this fetch request. I would just simply say that you have this message which says that invalid email. I hope this is clear now. Let's save this file. Let's start all our servers. So first, I want to just check it whether this is working or not. And if there are any errors, we'll resolve that. So we'll search first, go to the backend and we'll activate my virtual environment. Starting on these. I did not save this file. Okay. Yes, our backend is running. And then I also need to have another terminal. This is for front end. And then I can run npm run. This was the last command which I run to start our servers because we already have node modules over here. So I don't need to install node modules. And this is the place where my front end is being hosted. So yes, if you look, this is our application logs. If I go to the register, and right now we're not displaying this message anywhere. So I just need to look at the view. Inside this is the place where my register view looks. And these are the variables which have been declared in my this thing, email, password, check email message. There was this function which we have written. And yeah, that's all. So now if I enter this, I want to create an admin at gmail.com. And I entered that. Did it execute? It should execute. Let me see, something has happened, something has gone wrong. Yes. A few error messages have come. It says that in operator is cannot be used with the string. That's the error message which we are getting. So how do we check about and that? Okay. Let's try a different way. So where is this? Okay. This is giving us an error for now. So for now, we'll remove this so that we can handle it a different way. But right now, I just want to remove it because I just want to test whether this thing is working or not. So let's save the file. And if we again come back to the browser, let's clear. First, let's look at the view. All right, now I'll enter the input. And if I go to the register view, I'm not getting any messages as of now. Are there any errors? Failed to fetch. So this particular API was not resolved. HTTP. Okay, I've made a mistake over here in defining the path over here. So Are you able to see how I'm trying to debug? So can you see what is the problem with this particular API now? Why this particular thing was not resolved and we got an error?
The path is not correct.
Yeah. So that's when I will go over here and modify this thing. So I've given two HTTPs. So I'll resolve one. Okay. Let's enter the admin. And now we got a 4, not 5, which says the method is not allowed. Basically, it should be not post, it should be get. Again, let me try again. And this time we were able to hit this. So if we see here, okay, let me try again once. So I'm making a get request. Get request cannot have a body. That's the thing. So I have to send a post request only. But I will change the EPA from my backend. So here I'll allow, instead of get, I will say post. Mm, This time there were no messages. Let me go and check for the view. This check email message is empty. And did the request got sent? Yet it did send the HTML. It's gotten 200 OK. What was the response? The response was available is equals to false. That all things happened. And so we cannot read this particular if that's what the response means. So it should get this thing updated, but that did not get updated. Okay. So this is the problem which you are facing right now. Probably let me refresh the page properly and see what is the problem. Okay. I'll enter the user here. And this now this message got updated, email address already taken. I go to the console, it's not making a print statement, but yeah, we are able to see that this variable which was there, which was check email message, got updated as soon as we entered the email address. So this is the thing. Now we can take advantage of this particular place. I just wanted to say, where did I make a console statement? Oh, did not make a console statement anywhere. Yes, I did not make it. That's why this was not visible on the dashboard. I think I might have removed that. But did you understood what we have done till now? And then we can use that particular message, just a small paragraph message, or maybe classes form text. And I'll explain what line I've written over here, but I want to see what happens on the front end. And now if as soon as this says that email address already taken, and if I remove it, email address is available. You see, email. This is how, as in when I change my email address over here, it goes and sends a request to the backend, and then it tries to get this. Any doubts, guys? If you want to ask anything over here.
So in this, each character we type, it will send an API response. Is that how
Correct.
it's working?
Right now, this is how it is working. So as in
Oh,
when we type in single character, that's when it goes and sends an API request. To visualize that, if you look at your navigation bar, let's clear
you
the
can see
network.
so many logs being written.
Yeah, so that's one first email. I enter the second character, then again it sent a request. Again it sent a check email API request. So I hope you can see that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is how we have done this. And also with the password thing, I don't need to send any API request. For example, let's say that similar checks I want to do on my password also. but not via the fetch request. The thing is, when I enter a password over here, let's say that at the rate, as in when I make an input. So basically, you can, restrict how often you want to send this call this particular function by putting some modifiers like um, at the input dot some. I'm not sure. I have to look at the documentation on what all possible events are there which we can use. Like for example, when we used submit in the login view, we also use dot prevent, right? To send to prevent its default action. Similarly, there can be other functions which are available. There are other functions which are available. Right now, I'm not sure. I have to look at the documentation. So, which will restrict this, like, as and when I just complete my input box, then only I want to send this request. So, I can restrict the frequency of this fetch request, which is going back to the
Yeah,
database.
got it. Yeah.
And for now, for the password, I want to check that at the rate is equals to, and the password is validate password. That's the thing which I'm writing over here. And when I'm doing this validate password, this is the input. This is the function which I want to test when. So I can write a function which says that validate password. Right now I'm checking on the password. If the password length is less than 8, then password must be 8 characters long. That's what, instead of sending it an alert, we can assign it a different variable saying that password message, and then we can assign the value of that password message. We can assign the password message value, and similarly, when we have this input box, similarly the way we have done, we can have a form text for the password message as well. So let's save the file, and let's come over here if the password thing is working for us. Similarly, I can go to my view. I have to refresh the page that this thing reloads. Yeah, I have this password message now. So I entered the password and started the password. It says that password must be 8 characters length, and I keep writing, and I'm not changing the password length. So as in when even I crossed the 8 characters, I did not change that message. So I'll come here. I can say else. So if all the constraints you want to put on the password, like it should have an alphanumeric, it should have some special symbols, all that you want to impose on this restriction, you can do that. It's just that I'm right now just showing that what is all possibilities are there. But yeah, so let's say that password dot message will make it a null. So now if I make this change, as in when I start typing, and as soon as the password changes to the 8 characters, the message will disappear. So these are the things, these are the front-end validation which we are doing. And so with this, we have handled some front-end validations. Now I can, once all my validation which I want to impose on my input boxes, that's all are done. I can create another function. So that is just to what will happen when I'm making a submit button. So for the form, when I'm submitting my form at the rate submit.prevent, you know why we are using prevent for now. So when we are doing submit.prevent, I want to call a function which is register. So let me get register. So this is the function which I want to call when I want to add my data into my database. So also this can return some values. Let's say that this particular function returns true or false. So if we are at this particular stage, it will return true. I will tell you what is the purpose of this returning true. And if it comes to this particular place, it will return false. Similarly, over here, mm, I want to write multiple statements. I will put them into brackets. I can say return is available, so I will return true. Otherwise, I'll return false. Mhm. Wait, I don't want to do it here. It will create a problem for my asynchronous tasks. So I don't want to wait over here. Instead, okay, we'll do this thing over here. Okay. Now I want to write an asynchronous function, or let's say, yeah, I want to write an asynchronous function which calls register. And before even start writing this particular function, I want to say if I'm not able to validate my password, if I'm not able to validate, when I'm trying to register and if still I'm not able to validate my password, it will return me false. So that's when the condition is I want to alert saying that please enter a valid password, and will not return anything otherwise. Similarly, I can do for my email availability also. If you want, you can put in function, you can create a function, and this function is returning true and false, where you say if check email is, yep, we can do like this. Check this is this message which I'm referring to right now. Check email message. So that would be, I think I was writing here. So check email availability, or sorry, check email message. Check email message dot value. I can write the messages use a valid email address. So the validation which I wanted to perform before even registering, that all I'm doing, and I'm alerting the user right now. And then if everything is done, we'll create an object for the user with the valid email address and the password. The next steps would be very similar to what we have done for our login view over here. Because this particular function register, I want to make it asynchronous because I want to wait till the user has been successfully registered. This is not what I want async. I don't want an asynchronous behavior at this particular point. That's why I'm using async and await here. So await will be coming here. So I will be creating a constant response the way we have done. A response, await, fetch. I need to get the email address. So yes, over here. Response equals to await. And this is register. The methods are post, will pass the user in the JSONify, and this will send a request. Now, if response is not okay, whatever message we get from here will alert it. Otherwise, we'll get the response, we'll alert it, and then somehow we have to redirect it to the login page, but we'll see how to do that. But for now, we just say, we'll write okay. For now, this is what we are doing right now. I hope any problems here? We have to come here at this particular place and again modify some things. And that is if user has been successfully registered, we want to redirect that particular page to the login page. So that's what we have to do. But we'll discuss this once we test everything is going right or not. Before that, if you have any questions, you want to ask something, please let me know. Romy,
I
you're
think
not
we can
audible.
continue.
Okay. So let's test this particular part of whatever we have done till now. So ideally, what should happen is I'm trying to add a new user. Let's say that I'm adding user 12@gmail.com. This email address is available. Right now, I'm not checking the authenticity whether the email address is correct or not. But apart from that, this email address is available. I'm entering the password as 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and now this password has also been available. I want to look at my console, submit. The registration has been successful. That's what message which we have got. Okay, and this can be tested. This can be checked. If I come here to my database, the user one to which I created has come over here. User one to just which we created right now. So this is how we are able to register now. I hope you have no doubts over this particular point. Okay, so now if you look at this particular place where we have written all these statements saying that if we look at this particular message, so any data which was there, we have seen this in the videos that any data which has been defined in the script tag that can, if we want to interpolate the data, we can simply use these curly braces and that will interpolate the data. We have seen that. But right now, when we're using these variables which are defined with the ref here, if you're using these variables inside the JavaScript use dot value, otherwise in the templates, we ignore that using, we don't use dot value. The next thing is also this particular place, we have also used a if directive. And the people, this is just that if if the value of this particular thing which you have written inside these brackets, the password message, if this is if it exists, then it only it will display this particular tag. Otherwise, it will ignore that. And apart from this, I don't think I have anything else to say over here. Now, since we have understood how to send the data, how to connect our database, how to have the routers, I also want to introduce a few more things before we start actually working on the project. That is, yeah, the next thing is routers. So I told you, right? Once I receive this particular message where I've been successfully registered, I don't want to stay into my registered page. In fact, I want to go to the login page. That's what I want to do, and I want to do it programmatically. So if you have gone through the documentation, so view routers documentation, if we go, and we have something called as programmatic navigation. So if we go to the programmatic navigation, we have various functions like router, dot push, and everything. But how do we do it with the composition API? Since we are using with the composition API, how do we go about it going with the composition API? So this is the composition API. It says that we have to use this way. So if we want to use a router, we use a used router from the view router. That's how we have to import. So let's do that. This was the place register view where we were working.
Um,
Apart
Small
from
doubt
the,
here. What is
yeah,
composition API again?
okay. So the way we are, the style of way we are writing our code, right? The way we have written our code in the various SFC files, this style of writing the code is called as composition API. So
Okay.
the second video which I created, right? The if okay, let me explain it here. So if we go to the Vue.js, we have two styles of writing our APIs, API styles. One is options API,
Mm-hmm.
and another
Okay.
is a
Yeah, yeah, I
composition
got
API.
it. Got it.
So now the way you have written your code in Vue 2, where you used to specify data method. So there was this boilerplate which we used to follow. That style of writing the code in Vue is called as options API. And right now we are following a free flow. Like we can just write the functions, and because this is very easy to and intuitive to understand, that's why
Mm.
I'm using it. And this style of writing the code is called as composition API.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how to introduce this thing we saw, that I have to import router from the view router. So we have used the view router. We'll create an object of it. So we'll say router is equals to use router. And then at the place where we want to route it, I can just say router dot push, and I can tell just the which path I want to route it to. This is the new thing which we have discussed. So we'll save the file and see if this works or not. So now coming back to the code. Okay, let's come to the register. Router is not defined. How come the router is not defined? We just did define the router. This is the place we have defined the router. And this is spelling error. I think there is no spelling error also. But let's refresh the page. Router is not defined. Okay, let's check the documentation. I have a mistake. I've had a mistake. I have to use constant. Oh, that thing is the thing which I didn't do. I have to define let the variable name as the constant. That was the reason why that error was coming. And if I come here and it's refresh, okay. So we add the register page. Now I want to add another user. Let's say user 2. Password is registration successful message shows. Click on the login and it redirects you to the login page now. Yes, this part is clear now. So this is how we can do programmatically navigate based on the our logic. Okay. Now, right now, what we're trying to do is we are using alerts to display the messages, right? But they have this thing which says, for example, when I clicked on the register and I was trying to register a user, let's say user 2 at user 3 at the rate gmail.com, and some password is there, and then I enter. Until and unless I interact with this alert, it will not navigate back to the register. So my program, my application is stopped here. It is waiting for user action. Once the user will take action, that point of time only, the application will take an action. So this is how it is waiting for something. So sometimes instead of we want to show these messages, these alerts which we are showing right now, instead of showing these, we just want to show these enter an email, valid address, user as a password. So we just want to show them on the template instead of like an alert. So I want to implement that kind of a functionality. But okay, before even going there, let's look at this slide row. So yeah. Mm, So each and every of so we have a child component called as login. Similarly, we have another component called as an add product in the view. So these two, both the components would be passing some messages, and we want to have a placeholder where we will display all those messages which have been sent by various components. That's our objective. Now, we can have an hierarchy of the components. For example, if you look at where we are displaying our products, let's say that we are displaying our products over here. And if you see, I want to display all my categories in a product. So this is a container where I'm storing all my categories, let's say fruits. And inside the fruits, I have a table. This is a table which I have over here. in which I am displaying my product details. This is how I'm displaying my products displayed over here. For example, product one, product two. So this is how I'm talking. So if you see, now this entire structure is being repeated every time. Just a second. So this structure would be repeated every time. I hope you understood. I don't have to, draw it again. So this categories for vegetables also will be having a similar structure. So now we have a repeated structure of, we have a repeated uh, repetition of the same structure which is there, but just the data is different, right? So we can define one component for the categories table and also a component for the products table. For the product date, for each product, we can define another component, and that can be used replicatively. Uh, did you understood this part? I hope I was not able to make the statement very clearly, but you have any doubts? What you understood from this particular statement which I just made?
So you want to
Yeah,
define a table structure somewhere and reuse it.
yeah, correct.
Also, yeah, I want to define this kind of a structure, but the see, this we have a repeated code. So, for example, if I want to display my products, each product element, like if I have four products in a particular category, each of those four products will have their own functionalities. For example, if I want to edit uh, product one, I need to have a different edit button with different hyperlink, which will different APIs basically, or basically a different body of that particular API. Similarly, for the product two, we'll be having a different body when we are making a fetch request. This is one example. So we have certain common things between these P1, P2, P3, but we also have some different things as well. So what we can do, we can call them as one unit. So product one, so product is one entity, one unit, which is being repeated. Also, we have this category, which is fruits. It's a one entity, and it is being repeated across various categories like fruits, vegetables, and this thing. So we can call them as we can create one file, which will handle all the functionalities. The way we have created one file for the login and register over here. Similarly, we can create one file which will handle the products or which will handle categories. That file can have different functionalities on how to make an edit, what to do when use the clicks on a delete functionality, but they will have something in common, something in different. Just the data would be different. Basically, what would be different is the data. Otherwise, the functionalities would be same. But here is this thing. The thing is, but this product entity which we are talking about is inside the categories, inside the categories. If we are displaying our products like this, so we have an inbuilt hierarchy. So I have this outer section where I'm display. This is my parent component. Inside that parent component, I have these categories. So which comes under the child component and the P1, P2. These are the other components or the entities. These are inside the fruits or the categories component. So it is a child of the parent, child of the fruits or the categories component. Do you understand this hierarchy?
Ah, yes.
Okay, I'll make if we go to the view documentation, we have a components basic which I want to talk about. So for example, this is my, do you have an example over here? No. So what I'm talking about is I have my route. So we had this navigation bar uh, and we have a main. We don't have an aside section, but we have a navigation bar and the main content. Inside the main content, we had these articles. And inside, for us, it is categories. And inside the categories, below that level, we had these so-called products. This is how I'm following in hierarchy. So for each of these entities, I can create one component. like products as well as categories. And now, okay, so let's do that first. Okay. So I don't need these things now about view and home view. These are the files which were generated uh, by the view. I don't need that, but I just go to the components folder where I'm creating all my components. So let's create one file, which is category.view. This would be file where we'll be writing the logic for our category. Similarly, we'll have another file called as products.view. This is the place where we will be writing the code for our products logic. And then we'll be having in our views part over here, I would be having an home view. So basically, I'm creating a dashboard now for administrator. We already have a one file called as home view, so we can just work with it. Instead of these files, I'll just take a 5 minutes break and then I will come back to use for sure. You guys can also take 5 minutes break and then we'll start. Okay, I'm back. You guys said me? All right. So where were we? We were creating our home view now. So basically, that's what we were doing right now. So when a user logs in, uh, so let's say we enter with the admin details and password as soon as I entered, I've logged in. But it's just that right now it's just displaying the authentication token and it's storing the in the local storage, and that's what it is doing right now. But I want to navigate back to the home page, and this is where I want to work on like what should be displayed. So my home page, the navigation bar will also changes, will change according to which user has logged in. My home page will also change. But for now, I'm creating my admin dashboard, and I'm not care right now. I'm not concerned about whether this content is being displayed with authentication or not. So I'm trying to just display the content. So what I'll do. So let's say that we need to display all the categories and products which are there in our database. So let me look at my models, how I've defined my models for the categories. Okay. So we have the products table and we have the categories table that we are interested in. And these two tables are connected with the products over here. Okay. So do we have sufficient amount of APIs to display get all the categories? Let's look at that. The third API which we created, that was just to get the all the categories which are there in our database. So let's and we're just sending the category name, description, nothing else. We are doing it sending over here. Okay. So somehow I have to make few changes because it was just to show you like how to get this information, but we don't have any information on how to get the product information. So what we'll do over here is things are getting a bit complicated here. And, in my home view, I need the products, and I don't have the categories information. But I can start writing with the templates. So I'll start working with the categories.view. Here I can have a script tag, script setup, and then template. Okay. And this is a categories component. So I will define just one category. So div classes container fluid. Inside this container, I want to just display a name. So div class row, and again then div class equals to column, and I want to have a 9 columns. And similarly, I want to have div classes column 3, and it's and now inside this column 3, I want to have two hyperlinks. So I want to have a router link classes retail binaries, and not the register. I want to have an edit. Right now, I'm not defining these parts over here. Will come and define it later. It's just right now. I'm just defining these router links over here, and okay. Instead of these router links, we'll define buttons. Okay, and at this particular place, I want to have the category name and category description to be displayed to the user and how to go about doing that. I need somehow let's declare a variable called as constant. And what all we need? We need the category information. Okay. For now, I'm hard coding this content because right now I don't have the APIs. I'm not making a fetch request to the APIs. So I'm just putting random content. That's it. So that I can just display it. And this is how I'm displaying the content. So now, and besides this row, I want to display all my products information. Div class is row 3, and inside these containers, I would somehow display my products. Right now, I'm not doing the code for it. So what we have done over here, we have created a template which is responsible for displaying our categories to us. So if we go to our home page, this is a one component we have created, which is have a template and a dummy content for now. We have not modified it in greater details. And we have a home view. This is the place where we want to display all our categories. So this is just one component, and we want to repeat it for, let's say, many components. So how we can do it? Let's say, this is a home view. First of all, we'll import this component category view from mm, import category from the components category view, and then we will just write category. Okay, this is what we have done. Let's save the file and see what has happened. Do we have some errors? Yes, we have some errors. In script is required. Script setup. Uh, Script setup. Product view. Category view. This is the problem with the category view. What's actually the problem? Let's go and read more in detail. Is there any spelling error? Mhm. It's asking that it should be this template and script tag should be there. But we already have this thing. Okay, let's save the file again. And we'll save this file again. We'll restart our server. Yes, now the problem has been resolved. I think I forgot I have to save that error happened because first I saved the home view and then I saved the category view. That's why that was happening. But yeah, right now this is how my home page looks like. So I have the fruits, the whatever the content which I wanted to display, and I wanted to display these two buttons to edit and delete this functionality. So this is how it is happening. But right now, so what has happened? Okay, so this is one of the component which I have created inside the components folder over here. And I can use this again for multiple times now. Like if I use the categories another time, like I can use like this like an HTML tag. And right now I've used 3 of these tags over here. So I save the file and see what has happened to our. So now three times the same component has been rendered. But for now, the data between these three components is same. But somehow we can change the data as well. So if we go to the documentation of the view over here, inside the component basics. So right now what we have created is we have created one of the component for the categories, and we are displaying it on the main page. That's how we have connected it. So it says that the documentation says that how to we define a component. It's like a simple SFC file only with the view extension, like an template button and then a script tag, which you can see. For our categories.view also, we have done a script tag and a template tag, and we had some dummy templates over here. Now we can now we have also seen that how do we use these components. As you can see that inside this is my parent root, and on that root I'm use this categories text to use those components which I have created. Similarly, I can create a products component as well. We'll see that. But before going there, I want to show how we can send the data. So how do these three categories, which the components which we have used, how they are different from each other? So we'll see that in the documentation. Now the next is that job of passing the data to the components is being done by the props. So how do we define the props? So we generally define the props like this. So what actually it means to what it says is, so this is my home.view. Inside the categories.view, let's say that we constant. Let's first import ref from the view. Also we'll import define constant category is equals to define props, or we can call it as a props only. Constant props is equals to define props, and then I can give a name as category. So this category has been defined over here, and I'll comment this out. And let's say that I want to display category name and category description like this. I'll save this file for now. In my home.view, now inside each of these categories tag, I can write a new, okay, I'll just define over here some dummy data. I'm defining dummy data over here. So constant. So this is how I've defined these categories. It's a list of categories over here. And then before category start category in categories, and then I can pass the category as categories. Let's save the file and see if something changes to the code over here. Okay, we have some errors. A property was accessed during the render but is not used on instance. Okay. There is a props.category. So only props.category.description. Yeah, refresh. Okay, just give me a second. I'll see what is happening over here. Define props. I'll define the props over here. And this should get a content over here like category. So I will just make a console statement console.log. Okay, this is coming out to be undefined. So prop is coming out to be undefined. Okay. So the problem here could be with home.view. Okay, that the okay. We'll go to the documentation. So we have done this part. We have defined the props. Like the way we have, like this is the way we have used it. So we have the props, which was a list, and it has a title, which we are doing it as a console.log. That's what we have tested. Now, how do we send it to the this thing? So instead of using the semicolons, I have to send it to use. I don't have to use. Okay, categories. This is the categories which we have. 3, 4. I'm doing everything right as far as I know. Just give me a few seconds. Let me see what is happening over here. Mhm. Let me look at the categories thing got all the objects, name and description, and yeah. Mm, inside this home view, we have this category component. And if you look at the category, we are sending the correct props over here, like name and description. And we have also sent the reactive. And this has also been sent back to the products. Okay. So elements suits us. Let's go one by one. What is props here first? Let's see that. Props is a proxy object which has categories. So that is there. No. Okay, so we'll stop here today. I'm not sure why this error is happening. I will see and look at. Okay, okay, yeah, we got it. We got it. We got it. I think there was some error in the spellings, I think. So when I'm making props.category over here, props.category, it displays me the name which I wanted to display over here, like name and description. Probably I had made a small mistakes over here. Let's see. Oh, spelling mistakes are over. It's okay, okay. I have written GROY. That's why it's not working. I was looking everywhere and was not looking at the spellings. Okay. So if I refresh it now, so you see how the data has came to me like fruits, vegetables, and dairy, the tables which I've created. So this is how I'm sending the data now. So what has happened? So I have created one category component, but since I had this list, I am looping over this entire list. And so I have these three items over here. So all these three, when I'm going to display these three components, these three data points, these three categories, they have a similar, these three things needs to be displayed to the user in a same fashion. Like they need to have same syntax. So what we have done, we have created an entire component for this, a categories.view, which has this kind of a structure over here. As you can see, it has div containers. That's how we're displaying. We have some functionalities for edit and delete also. And then, so that's how we are rendering it. And as you can see over here on our page over here, so it's being displayed like this. You have any doubts now? That error was coming because of just the spelling errors, the spelling mistake which I have made. And what I'm trying to do over here is the important thing is this was home.view was my parent component. And from the parent component, I am sending the data. This data exists in my parent component and not the child component. So I'm sending the data from here like this to my child component, and I'm accepting my data which has been come from my parents via these props which I've defined over here. So this is the prop which I have defined, and this is the variable which I will be sending. So this category and this particular variables are the same. And I've used this semicolon over here because I want to bind this particular variable which I've declared inside the v4 with this particular variable. So any doubts over here? I know it has been a lot of things, have said how the data is flowing and everything.
I will have to go through the video a couple of times.
Which video you're talking about?
No, this one only, this recording.
Okay, I'll just clear one thing. Okay, just see. This is my this is my parent component over here, which is home view, and I have some data over here. Let's say I have another category which I'm defining, category one. Let's say, and this is the data which I'm storing right now. Instead of fruits, let's do some random gibberish, and this is the category which I want to send to my another component. Over here, I can define a new component which says category, and then I can say category is equals to category one. Okay. If I save this file, let's see what happens. If I come here, refresh the page. Okay. I got the category one over here. This is being displayed. And now if I want to come over here and want to send this entire object, where is my PS4? Yeah. Now if I want to send the entire object which is here, I can bind it and save it. Let's go and see now the data has also come to us because we have done this particular variable. We have done this bind this particular variable with this thing, and that's how we are sending the data now. Earlier we were sending just a string. Now we are sending the object. And since they were in this particular object categories, we have multiple such categories over here. So we used v4 so that it can loop over all the categories which are there in this particular list. And then each of these elements can be sent and each a new categories tag is formed. And inside this category component, we have defined these props, which are accepting the arguments which have been, the objects which have been passed via these variables over here. These two variables which we have done over here. This is accepting that, and then we are using this values of these inside these variable at this particular place. If you have doubts on some questions are arising, please let me know so that I can clarify here itself.
About the explanation, I don't have any doubt right now, but while I'm been doing, I might encounter errors. That is when I need.
All right, all right. So that works with me. So I want to stop here because this has been a lot of thing. I want you to experiment at what all we have done, and I'll let you know when we have next session. And in the
So
meantime, you can
just
draw.
one thing,
Yeah,
supposing now you go back to that the screen
mm,
in
browser.
the browser.
Yeah,
So supposing now in fruits you have some a list of 3 4 fruits, right?
yeah, yeah.
And you want to click edit. Now will this edit and delete appear only once for fruits, or will it appear for each row under fruits?
Right now, these two buttons, edit and delete, is for editing the name, these names. This is we're performing edit operation on the category, not the products.
Not the
So
products. Okay.
yeah, that's why it is appearing for each of these categories which we have.
Now supposing I get a few products,
Mhm.
and if I do edit delete, that it will appear on each row, right?
Each row. Let me show you that. Okay, I think that would be a nice thing to revise. So
So
okay.
instead of it appearing on each row, I select a certain row and then
Mhm.
have only one edit.
Okay, how would you design the API for that? Basically, how you are sending like a list of items back to the backend.
Then I would only sell if there's a checkbox. I will select a checkbox and only send that particular edited row back on the API.
You can do that. That all is possible.
Yeah,
It's
because
just
from
that
a user
the logic will change. How we are writing our front end code and the back end code, both the logics will change.
change. Yeah,
We are accepting like right now we are when we are performing an edit, the API which we have created for the edit over here, we accepting that okay, we would be getting just one category ID which we are updating. Similarly for the products also, we are accepting one product.
correct. We are
But if we want
editing at a category level right now.
yeah, we are editing at the category level. But let's say that we are working on the product level also. If you send just one product ID, it will have we can edit only one product. But
Edit on one.
inside the body, let's say that instead of just one item, you are sending 10 items, and you want to perform all those edits on all those 10 items, you can do that.
Yeah, you can do all that. Correct.
Yeah. And similarly, your front end code will also change. You have to allow multiple forms so that you can fill all the updated details about each and every
Yeah, that'll become
product.
complicated.
That will become complicated instead of editing just one this thing,
Correct.
right? Other way
Um,
you can, if you want to perform an edit on, let's say, list multiple products, instead of just adding new products list by list, you can just upload a CSV file and you send that CSV file back to the backend. Your backend will read line by line the CSV file and it will make an update. That
and
also can be done.
yeah,
But again, that's the thing is the logics which we are writing will change.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also wanted to show one more thing before we end,
Yeah,
and that is right now I've just left this categories over here. So right now we have just seen one level of hierarchy. That is home view is inheriting like calling for the component view. Similarly, now we have a product and we have a categories table, and I want to display some of the products over here. So before this, I want to send some data over here. Let's say products pro- products is equals to mm, a list of items. Okay. So what we have done in along with the categories, we each category has some of the products which have been displayed in this list over here. So right now I'm just working with the fruits. So this data is also being sent to the here. So now we can access category. So if I just make a print statement over here, print, sorry, not the, it should be console.log, and I say categories.products, and let's say this, I'm making this statement and I save it. And if you see here, when I'm displaying the fruits, when I'm displaying the fruits over here, no, this should not be here. Let me, clear this and just refresh it again. Right now, it is giving me undefined. I think I've given a wrong spelling again. Where I defined the products. Let me see. Props dot category dot products. I did not save the file. So, okay, now I've saved the file also. And then I'll refresh. So if you see, we have also got the product details like apple and banana, which were there. And these products are accessible inside the categories component over here. Now I want to send each and every individual product. I want to display it over here. So let's create that. We'll create a table for this. We have a table. We will have something called as T head, and also we'll have something called as T row. T head, T body. Inside the T head, we'll add one TR, and with T head as name. And let's say some actions we write over here. Similarly, we can write a TR, and TR would be products. Okay. So now inside the products.view, I write a scripts tag, setup, and it should be script or scripts. It should be script. And then similarly, I write template. Okay, inside the template, I write just a TR tag, and which has table data. Just two rows basically there would be. And, yes, PD. And here I want to have buttons. Let's not use the bootstrap also. I want to make it simple. And I'll accept a define props, and I will accept a product. And then I want to display the product name. Let's say this. At this particular place, I would import products from the product.view, and I will use the product over here. So products, V4. Return this line and save this. Okay. And see what happens. And we are displaying the products which are relevant for the fruits. And each and every row has been populated over here. As you can see, apple and banana. And if we come here, and if we look at what we had done over here. So this thing, which is here, right? The product information with these buttons like edit and delete over here. We have taken that thing into a different component now. And so now we are just passing the data over here, and that's how we have done it. Did you understood what has happened over here?
Yes.
All right. So now if we look at the hierarchy inside the view thing over here, so we are at a root level. This is my root home view. If I click on the home view, I have various categories over here, as you can see. Inside the first category, I have to refresh this. In order to work with the view, I have to always refresh this. So inside the home view, I have this category, and inside this first category, I have another child, which is parents. So this product information, which was here, right? This apple and banana, this all this information was at my home view level. So all the category information, all the product information, every data was at the level of home view. And then we keep sending the data from home view to the categories and then categories to views via with the help of using props. So that's how we have sent it. So this is the place where we are sending the props. This key we have already discussed in the video where we have discussed V4 and V mod. So I'm not going to emphasize more on this. It's just that it's good to have key whenever we are using V4. But the important point is we are sending this product information from what we got from our home view. So we have gone, we have to send the data. If we want to, if our this parent component over here wants to have some data which is being stored into the home view, first we have to send it to the category and then category will send the data to the products. And if this hierarchy goes down a way longer, then you have to keep sending the data. That's the one thing which I wanted to discuss. And in the next session, we'll continue from here. Uh, any questions, any doubts? And if not, we can stop the recording. Okay, so I'll stop the recording now and see you in the next session. I'll let you know when the next session will be.
Uh, about the yesterday's sessions video, were you able
I
to
have a
upload it?
I have a session.